Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Yeah, got to unmute myself. Rob Browne here with you on this Wednesday morning edition of Sidelines. Dudley, Dawson, Hogville.net is going to join us here in the first segment, and he's got a lot to say about what's going on with Arkansas, as he always do in college football, the big picture. A second segment, Johnny Ballpark Franks joins us from up in Nashville, and William Halliday, the intern, will sit in and take notes and listen and add some commentary. I always like to get him hooked up with these smart writers and sports media people that really know how to do things the right way. As Jiminy Cricket said, there's two ways to do things. There's the right way, which is the way you should do it. There's the wrong way, the foolish way. And only a fool does things the foolish way. Like Ross Bajork, the athletic director at Texas A&M, who took no blame for hamstringing Texas A&M to the $76 million disgraceful buyout. I mean, look, this isn't against Texas A&M. This is against the people that are punishing the fans. They can say all day it's the 12th Man Foundation and that money's no deal. You know what? It is. And there's some people behind the scenes that are madder than a bunch of wet hens about that. And they should be. Okay. If they spend money like the federal government does, and that's not a good thing. It's no accountability. So we'll talk with those guys about the big picture of college football. Roman Harper, native of Prattville, Alabama. You see him on SEC Network, played at Alabama, 11 years in the NFL, 9 with the Saints, won a Super Bowl. He's an iconic, godlike figure down there in New Orleans. He'll join us at the top of the second hour. Mark Hamm, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, checks in as well. Look, 6 days a week, 25 shows a month, 300 plus shows a year. Repetition is the mother of all skill, okay? That's what we do on the show. We get the best guests. We engage them, let them talk, give their thoughts and opinions. The First Amendment, free speech is alive and well on this show. We don't wear skinny jeans. We don't wear pink all the time. This is as Maury Gaston says, a red meat and potatoes sports podcast and radio show. Again, you do that by bringing on the best guests. People like Dudley Dawson, who's become one of our favorites, who has the most beautiful view of Heber Springs, high atop his deer stand where he is right now. God, that's the north end of the lake, isn't it? I think it's that's
absolutely. I've been waiting to tell you this for a long time. This is actually my home in Balch, Arkansas. It was my childhood home in Balch, Arkansas. Took a picture. We had a lot of farmland around there.
Yeah,
but we had this one little area over here in the corner that was just great, And so, man, I wish I had something to talk about this week. I don't know what we can get into.
Just nothing. I'm trying to. I was racking my brain last night. What are we going to talk? There's nothing going on. There's no excitement. There's no news, whatever. So I'm handing the ball off to you and let her rip. Is that a Cowboy shirt you got on?
Yes.
Yeah,
always.
I love it.
The win or lose, I'm always there. That is not the case, I don't think, with the program I cover up here. Obviously, they went down to Florida, had a great win. The program was feeling better about itself, as good as you could feel when you're 3-6, but came home and there's no way to put it other than they just stunk the place up. Auburn jumped on them early, jumped on them often. As Coach Freeze said afterwards, they could have put up as many points as they want to. It just was a pathetic effort. And coaches know that. The players know that. A lot of people expected something to happen on Saturday as far as movement with the coach and different things. A lot of people reported that was happening, and it didn't happen. And that's one of the reasons that, you can't – being first is cool. Being right is what you should be. And, you'd like to have both of them, but I sit back here and I talk to a lot of the sources that I have that I've developed over 40 years. Yeah. And when they're as confused as you think you are, then what you report is nothing. it's a fluid situation. You fall back on this thing. I still don't know what's going to happen here in the end. Everybody, talks about what a great person Coach Pittman is, and that's true. Everybody's talked about how he made it clear that he wanted this to be his last job in football, and that he wanted to retire to Hot Springs, where him and his wife already have a house. But he made it clear on Monday that's not what he wants to do. Now we can throw out a variety of things. Him staying around at least another year, him getting a negotiated buyout and retiring and then bringing in somebody else. And the third is that maybe they just don't know what they want to do yet. Maybe there'll be an announcement next week. Maybe there'll be an announcement after the season. If I could tell you what exactly was going to happen, I would. But I do think that there are so many dynamics to this thing that, you just mentioned the big buyout that Jimbo Fisher has. Well, it's not that big here, but it is big enough that it makes you ponder, what you're going to do. If you're going to bring in another coach, you're going to maybe have to pay a buyout. How does that all work? That's what's all going around here this week, and it's very tiring, but it's what you sign up to do.
It is, and Sam Pittman, you're right. You're a professional journalist. Sure, we like you. Everybody does. But then you got to look at the numbers. What are the numbers on his buyout? I think you mentioned this before. After 4 years, what benchmarks does he have to hit in order to get a buyout if he were to be fired without cause?
Now, there is some tiny little words in there that I have trouble reading, but it has something to do with being 500 after year one. They kind of COVID year, they kind of just said, we're just going to throw that out of here. And once you got the extension and switched to Jimmy Sexton, they put in the clause in there about if you're 500, you get this amount. If you're under 500, you get this amount. He's 21 and 23. Going into these final two games. And so that'll play a factor as well. What I did think was interesting, and it was very awkward, but I thought Coach Pittman handled it as well as he could, because we're sitting around here, all these reports and all this speculation that he might not end the season, or he might announce his retirement. And they had a Monday press conference. Certainly the questions were asked about, what do you think about what's going on? And he talked about how he's just trying to win for Arkansas and nothing different, worries about the people under him, but not about himself. And it's just it was very awkward, very sad. But this is what I'm going to say. Again, I pointed out that he's a good dude, and I think he's a great football man. It's not working right now here in terms of this season. There have probably I've been covering sports up here for 40 years, and with football, there's probably 5 games that you look back on, and are they crushing losses or the most disappointing losses? I'm not sure which way to put it, but Saturdays, after the way you won at Florida, after the way they played, was one of the top 5 disappointing losses that they put together, because it was not a game from start to finish.
Yeah, it looked to me so bad when they lost to Alabama in 2020, 52-3 up there in Fayetteville during the year of the virus. I mean, that was an Alabama national championship team that was really good. And Arkansas went 3-7 that first year with Pittman. I thought they would win 6 games. I predicted them, and they almost did. People thought I was nuts, but I hear that a lot anyway. And we all do if you're going to make bold predictions. That team looked like they gave up. And I could not believe it, because the defense for Travis, I bet Travis Williams and Marcus Woodson and those defensive coaches went nuts. I mean, that's when you go, what am I doing? And I couldn't believe it. I was getting a lot of texts from Arkansas friends of mine that were at the game. And one of them, his daughter's, brother-in-law works on the staff at Auburn, and they're all Razorbacks. I mean, she worked, in the athletic department. They were just like, I've never seen anything like this. That's the most disturbing part about it. And my gut reaction was, because I live in Memphis, spent a lot of time over here, but just all that aside, I was like, I don't think that can be fixed. that looks like you've lost a team because, and then after the game, and I'm all about sportsmanship. I want to see a bunch of guys, in tears and putting their fists through the lockers and smashing after a loss. I don't want a bunch of guys that are okay with it. And I didn't see a sense of urgency. That's the only thing that bothers me because I know a lot of Arkansas fans. I know some of their boosters, and they are as passionate and loyal a group of people as you will find anywhere in the country. And I talked to one yesterday in Little Rock. Oh my gosh. That's the part that bothers me. And again, it's not nothing against Sam Pittman or anybody, but they have the resources to do so much at Arkansas. And here's the question. What are his priorities? I mean, I guess that's a good question from Frank and Helena.
And here we go. I hate to use the word quit. I mean, I think it's something that if you say that you're really, sticking your foot in it. But like you said, the effort that was put forth, the defense has tackled from good to great all year. And it was just, they were trying to just use body blows instead of wrapping up. And that was not a characteristic that they've had for the year, but it was on Saturday. Sam Pittman's priorities have always been to do two things. One, to get the Arkansas program back up to a level that they could be proud of by the time he left. I don't think he ever, and I don't think Arkansas ever thought that he would be the, 10 to 12 year head coach here, what they wanted him to do. And this was after so many different coaches either turned the job down or said they weren't interested. That the job got to him. And I think he did a great job there early on and tried to turn it around. This year it's just spiraled out of control. Everybody says, hey, he's a good guy, but this just can't happen. And here's the deal. You've already had one recruit decommit. I'm interested to see what's going to happen, in these next couple of weeks, because there's movement all over the place. Are you going to lose some people if the coaching staff stays? Are they going to stay together? You've got to think long-term, not just short-term. If they do bring somebody in here and they lose recruits, well, you better make sure you bring in the right guy. If they keep Coach Pittman for another year, you better make sure that Rob Anderson's right there. You better make sure that you hire the right thing. Now, I go back to Danny. I think he was a good coach when he was here the last time. For whatever reason, the attitude that the players had toward him and he had toward them just wouldn't work out. It has been an absolute cluster. I'll leave the other word out there, but you know what I'm thinking. The cluster
duck.
Yeah, and it has just not worked. Now, then here's the people who make the decisions. You've got to decide, is it time or is it not time? And you've also got to decide, here's the thing. I don't think people realize times that Arkansas, yes, is an SEC team, but it is not a team that can just a program that can just throw money all over the place. Somebody has to step up and pay that buyout. If one of the boosters will do that, that's a big difference between here and Texas A&M. And man, we could go on about Zach Arnett only getting 1 year. When coaches start getting fired and Arkansas stays where they're at or stays in their lane, it just fuels more criticism and despondence, I guess, that is what's going on. It is not a fun time for any of the coaches over there. It's not a fun time for the athletes. But all that being said, man, college sports quit being an activity a long time ago. It's a big business. And as we've often said, football pays for the other 18 sports mostly.
Yeah, it does. I remember Tommy Tuberville saying it when he was at Ole Miss, 95 to 98. He said, this is a business. I mean, he learned that, association with Larry Lacewell, Jimmy Johnson, Dennis Erickson. And I think that the Arkansas, here's what's a lot of people do. And being in the, financial services, in an advisory team that manages people's money, been doing this 32 years and counting. You think these wealthy people are just going to throw money at all these problems? It's not that easy. And in fact, when you talk to these people privately and off the record, they'll tell you, frankly, I'm sick and tired of everybody thinking that it's my job to fix all this mess.
Yeah, I had one booster around here.
You know what you agree with me? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I had one booster around here who told me this. He said, the reason I'm rich is because I don't throw money at stuff. And he said, that would be, and we were discussing a previous buyout, he said, that would be throwing money at stuff. And he said, that's the reason I've been able to be as successful as I am, because I don't, make foolish decisions for the most part. And he said, just wanting to change coaches. He said, why can't everybody else do it? Why did it got to be me?
Yeah.
And that's why, I don't know how you stay rich. I know how you get comfortable. That's about it.
Well, what the thing that the wealthiest people that I know that I work with are very shrewd. And then they have people around them that are 5 times as shrewd. But the ones that throw the money that we hear about, like at Texas A&M, they keep saying it's the 12th Man Foundation. Well, remember, a third of all the oil and gas money from the state legislature in Texas every year is appropriated and given to College Station. So they're basically spending money like the federal government.
Yeah.
And Austin gets the other 2/3. I don't know how that makes the rest of the schools in Texas feel, but probably not too good.
Yeah, and you could find somebody at most of the successful schools in the SEC who are the power brokers. And there's certainly power brokers up here. I mean, I know who Auburn's power broker is. That has done things over the year, both positive and negative. So, but it is. Arkansas can be a very good to great SEC program, but everything's got to hit right. I mean, they say, Dudley, why do you say that? All the other programs are doing, great and all that. Well, because I've sat here and I've watched it over the course of the last 40 years or whatever, and I've seen great teams, I've seen good teams, but for the most part, I've seen teams that win 5 to 7 games a year, and you've got to hit on the right guy, and sometimes you hit on the right guy, he can't keep his butt off a motorcycle and all the other things that went into getting Bobby Petrino fired. And it wasn't just the motorcycle and the volleyball player and all that. There were so many other things that went in that. There was a clamor, here over the weekend, bring him back. Well, there's a variety of reasons you can't bring him back, including the policies that sent him away in the first place. I found it interesting that he wasn't elevated to the interim coach. They moved to the associate head coach, which is what you're supposed to do. That's why, that's the position that you're supposed to. But I think many people thought that he was going to go down there and be the coach in waiting and take over. We'll see, but it sure appears that that's not going to be the case.
The coach in waiting thing, Will Muschamp, Jimbo Fisher, they killed that. And for whatever reason, Will Muschamp had Kurt Roper as his offensive coordinator at Florida and at South Carolina. And start connecting the dots. I don't understand that, but Will Muschamp could have been at Florida forever. He lived there for 10 years when he was growing up. And then he lived in Rome, Georgia. But you look at Arkansas and in boosters, again, there's a lot of money. I mean, $14 a bushel rice. It's a good year. Talk about oil in Texas. Yes. Rice in Arkansas. I mean, you people think you have farms. Come over here. I mean, where I'm sitting right now in the dining room at Lee Hall at Cherry Farm. There's one farm. I mean, it's 200 yards. It's 150 yards from where I'm sitting. They run 25,000 acres. I mean, there's a lot of money here. But again, these people aren't stupid. You see a lot of wealthy people that drive a 15-year-old truck. Kind of keeps them grounded, especially if they're self-made. We know those stories. It's just William in Memphis, offensive line issues killed the Hogs this year. Everything else followed. In 21 and 22, these guys. Cody Kennedy did a very good job with the offensive line. But for the first time, I really noticed Sam Pittman looked lost. He looked to borrow the line from the great Zeppelin song, which Howlin' Wolf really wrote, Dazed and Confused. He did. He looked completely lost. And I mean, like, holy cow. I mean, that's the first time I've seen that.
There have been some decisions this year that have been mind-boggling, and he hasn't helped himself when he's gone into press conferences and explained things. And he's explained it in a way that really has, as you said, looked dazed and confused. You can only, we all were thinking we're gonna, this is all on Dan Enos. This is why it's been a deal, or this is all on Cody Kennedy. And like you said, he didn't forget how to coach. I can, as I've said for a long time, he went from an assistant to an assistant coach at Georgia, and then to the tight end coach here. And then all of a sudden he's the offensive line coach at Brad Davis. When Brad Davis went to LSU, but still, they did well the previous 2 years. This is a team that was a powerhouse offensively. The last time they didn't lose that much in the offensive line. They lost some good guys. They didn't lose that much that it should fall off like this. But it has just again been a cluster. That first game when they didn't look good offensively, we all should have known that something was happening. In the second game, 28-6 against Kent State. Kent State's not been very good at all. They're a building program. And then, but the damnedest thing, man, excuse me, but the damnedest thing is that they have, at times, it's been on the road for most part, played well at times.
Yeah.
And it's as if they get away from home, their worries are over, and they've come here, and this has just been a horrible home season. Otis Kirk and I were standing on the sidelines there at the end of the ball game the other day, and he was saying they should give all these people, a free ticket to the next game. And I was like, no, they should give them their money back for the previous 6.
Yeah.
Don't make them do it again. But I do give a lot of credit to those people who were in the stands Saturday. I'm sure they're excited about the Florida, but it's an effort, and it's a lot of money to come to a football game these days, and they did it, and they were rewarded with a pathetic effort, and that just can't happen.
Well, there's just times when a change is coming. Flip back a year ago, October 29th, I was at the Auburn-Arkansas game at Jordan-Hare, and I remember telling the people I was with, I said, I'll predict Brian Harsin is fired right after this game. And he was. They announced it Monday. But what I see with Arkansas, with Sam Pittman, is, you let Dan Enos coach 8 games, and it never got better. And if he wasn't running the plays they were running in practice on Saturday, that's a chain of command issue.
Yeah, that's another thing you shouldn't tell people.
Yes.
If you're digging a hole, don't start, keep throwing dirt back, just why? Again, you have not only had a bad season, but you've said things that have made it seem even worse.
Yeah.
David with his Lance Leopold, who's the coach of Kansas, has done a really good job. My wife the other day, she said, I think they should get a young coach. And she said, I'm tired of these old guys. I said, well, the last two old guys have been younger than us.
Yeah.
I said, well, we can call it old, but they really, if they do make a change, and we say this every time they do, and the fact that they've made several changes here lately, it tells you where things have been. You have absolutely got to hit on the right person, and I'm speaking of Hunter Yurchek, who's done a great job. Your AD's jobs are usually on the line on their football decisions, not how great everything else is going. I really respect Hunter Yurchek. I think he's done a great job. He didn't hire Chad Morris, so he wasn't here yet. So I don't give him flack over that. But he's in a situation now that is tough. But that's why he also gets millions of dollars. He's got to make the right decision for the University of Arkansas athletic program. He's got to make the right decision for the school. And also, the way this thing is these days, you got to make the right decision for the state.
Yeah, you do. And, Sam Pittman did so many things right, damn proud state, and just endeared himself to the fans. I go back to a conversation I had on one of my, I was out riding or walking or something, and I was talking to a friend of mine who's very connected in this state. And he told me 6-7 weeks ago, he said, I'm talking to some of Arkansas's biggest boosters. And they've said, we all agree, we like the hell out of Sam Pittman. He's a fun guy. We like that. But this just isn't going right for what we're spending. And this is what they said. He said to me, he said, we're probably just going to write him a check at the end of this year and say, thank you for stabilizing the program, for getting us, keeping us from, falling into the abyss of hell. But it's time to move on and just hope things work out. But, that's what smart businessmen do. Again, go back to what Tim Horton and his father were told by Frank Broyles, Big Daddy. And Frank Broyles is one of the smartest, most innovative people ever. Played for Bobby Dodd at Georgia Tech, if I'm not mistaken. Pretty smart guy. But he said, if you've made the wrong hire and you know it, you got to get rid of them quickly. Mississippi State did it, but A&M didn't. You go back to the athletic directors, Ross Bjork. This guy's got a great future. I'll say it every day this week as a professional poker player. How he's kept a straight face, they feel like the 12th Man Foundation, will pay for this. And then he goes, but, we have financial responsibilities. Really? You're no different than the federal government, man. He should say, I put this deal together. I apologize. I'm resigning effective immediately. You owe me nothing. Put a paper bag over your head and just leave. He jokes about him being the latest athletic director at A&M. Again, how many times do we have to say this? A smart girl that I knew from Blytheville, Arkansas, told me one time, if money can solve it, it's not a problem.
Well, I'm going to tie that into Larry's question here. How much money does the Razorback NIL have? Are they willing to spend enough? They spend all that they have. Do they have as much as some of the more successful teams in the SEC? No. I mean, that's just the way it is. It's still a everybody learning thing around the nation. But yeah, I don't think they've lost players in football over NIL. I do think they've lost them in some other sports over NIL, including a really good pitcher that went to LSU who they thought was coming here. Yeah. And they'd still be done.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, and this is another one here, Tim, Texas and OU are willing to spend whatever it takes. They've been spending whatever it takes, okay, before NIL. We know that. If you didn't see the 30 for 30 about Marcus Dupree's recruitment, I mean, then you don't know what I'm talking about, so I can't help you. But, again, throwing money, A&M did it. They spent a lot on that class. What you ultimately end up with is a roster full of guys that are mercenaries that really don't believe in what you're doing. This stuff's been going on back in the war between the states. There were guys that were bounty jumpers. They would go sign up, get the bounty, and disappear and sign up again and again. You don't want to be fighting with people like that on your side. They're not going to stick it out. So the next thing for Arkansas, and Johnny Ballpark Franks will be on here in a minute. I hope you can stay on with us in the intern, and we're going to talk about it. But you look at Texas and OU coming in the league. Well, just when we thought OU was better this year, they did beat Texas. They lost at Kansas, and they also got beat in Bedlam. Mike Gundy's all excited, goes down there to the bounce house in Orlando. Who saw that one coming 49-3? Did you?
Well, that tells you how in rivalry games you just get up and then you celebrate the win and you don't spend time focusing on what you need to do the next time. You go out without that hunger, without that urgency. And, that's exactly what happened here last week. Now, I don't think Arkansas is a good football team. As the dude Herm Edwards says you are, what your record says you are.
Yeah.
But you can't have a great win and then just shut it down. And that's what appeared to happen here last weekend. And I don't know for sure what's going to happen here. I know what would be the best business move. Yeah. I don't know what's best for the program, but I do know what would be the best business move, and that would be bringing somebody else in. I'm not calling for that. I've said many times on the show that as a beat writer, you don't say a dude should be fired or a dude should be hired. You report on the news and all that. Exactly. But I do know from that, it used to be a small pocket of fans who wanted something different. Now it's a large pocket of fans.
Yeah.
And whatever happens, it needs to be done quickly, because as soon as the season is over with, you have official visits coming in here. And I'm telling you, there's some people that are committed to Arkansas right now that are going to take visits that to other places in that first part of December. And you have to have a decision made soon. And if the athletic director needs to come out, and again, I'm not telling him how to do his business, but I'm saying in the big scheme of things, it would be better, I believe, over the course of soon, to either say this dude's going to be our coach, or we've decided to go in a different direction, which was the line that everybody was throwing around after the game last week. It's going to be a negotiated buyout and a retirement, and everybody will go away happy.
Yeah. Well, what you don't want to do is do what Auburn did: get rid of Gus Malzahn December 12th or 13th, and not hire potato head Brian Harsin until Christmas Eve, and you miss the December signing period, and you don't get a class until February. And now only one of those guys from that first class is even on the team, Jarquez Hunter. We're going to take a quick break. Johnny Ballpark Franks is in the bullpen here, going to come in here from Nashville, and William Halliday, the intern, the scribe, going to be listening and learning from some true grit journalists after this quick commercial break. We're solving all the world's problems. We'll have them all wrapped up right before 10 a.m. this morning, so listen in.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Here with you, man. We got the Hollywood Squares going because there's a lot happening. Hey, Johnny, Dudley said from hogville.net, and before we got on the show, right when we started, he goes, no, there's nothing to talk about, so I don't know what we're going to do. But, William, now you're starting to see your second year as a young writer for the Auburn Plainsman, how exciting this stuff is. That's why you can't say, I've got an 8 to 5 job. It's 7 days a week at 3 a.m. You may get a call. There's a story to talk about. But Dudley, Johnny Ballpark Franks is up in Nashville, and this is a guy who's done over 14,000 interviews. I think his claim to fame, he's got a lot of them, is he's interviewed more of the Heisman Trophy winners than anybody, and he's got, what do you call it, the vault, Johnny, with your Heisman winners. We're going to get to that in a second, but just first off, talk about your thoughts on where we are in college football in this season, and we're all glad that we still got at least 2 months to go till mid-January of this stuff left before we have to get ready for next year.
How intriguing is it, the fact that we are in our 10th and final year of the 4-team playoff, and we talk about cycles in college football, the ups and downs, the roller coasters. But how about the fact that here we are wrapping up the 10th and last year, and the 4 teams that played for the national championship in 2014 Florida State, Ohio State, Alabama, and the Oregon Ducks are the same 4 teams that are still very much in the thick of things 10 years later. I also love the fact that we have the most unbeaten FBS teams this late in the year that we've ever had at this juncture, as far as in the BCS and the college football playoff era, which, if you're looking ahead to next year, that sets up a lot of chaos for next year if this holds true. And I think a lot of these things have to do with the fact that we have name, image, and likeness. We have the transfer portal. If you're bad now, maybe you can be competitive in 2 years, to the point where all of a sudden now you're making some noise on the national level. So that's where I really am as we wrap up the last 2 weeks of the regular season.
Wow. You see this from Pierre, 350 plus passing yards, 200 plus rushing yards by a quarterback in an SEC game. It may never happen again. William Halliday on the spot. Who did that?
That was Jaden Daniels.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
That
So,
was
I mean,
Jaden.
yeah. William, you heard what Johnny's saying about college football. You're writing about it. You're on campus. Again, you've grown up lifelong Tennessee fan. Now you're in school at Auburn. How exciting has this season been for you and is keeping your interest?
It's definitely been exciting for me, especially with Auburn now just getting on a win streak. Hopefully they can close it out with a 5-game winning streak being here. So it's been fun getting to watch different college football games, especially College Game Day with Pat McAfee lighting up the scene. So he's an interesting personality. I get to watch that every morning on Saturdays. So, it's definitely been an interesting season. Lot good Heisman candidates that there are. Jaden Daniels, even though he's got like 3 losses, is still a top 5 candidate in my opinion. But yeah, it's a great season so far.
Can I say just ugh on that comment? Just ugh, because to me, College Game Day is special because it's College Game Day. It doesn't need Pat McAfee. No offense. I hope he does.
I'm sorry, but you tell that to a bunch of younger people, and they're tired of seeing Lee Corso on there because he's so old.
Look, and I understand.
I'm just saying.
Look, I understand that about Lee, but David Pollock, come on. I mean, I don't need to be entertained on Saturday morning, getting up and gearing up for college football, because if you do, and look, your comments really make sense because we've seen the decline of college students going to college football. And that's a problem because those are the future season ticket holders for college football. But if you need to be entertained to get up for college football, then there's a bigger problem as far as college football is concerned.
Yeah. All right.
Dudley, give me Kurt Cobain.
Let me in on this. First of all, I'd like to take an X between Paul Lynn and Ruth Buzzy. To block. But now, Johnny, you sound just like me at times. I'm not the biggest fan of Pat McAfee as well, but I realized why he's on there. It was because ratings were declining, and as you said, the younger people, those under 60 and all need some excitement. He certainly brings that. But if you don't like him, you just do what I do. Just turn over to the SEC Network, watch their show, or turn over and watch, Urban Meyer as he waits to take over another program. There's enough for us all out there. But yeah, it's college football is always going to be entertaining, but you have to, bring in, guys every once in a while, even if it's a guy who's paying Aaron Rodgers millions of dollars to come on his show. I mean, it's, I'm not a big fan of McAfee's. I'm not a big fan of McAfee's, but I understand it.
But here's the problem, though. Because they bring in these personalities and pay that kind of money, what happens is the individuals who bring the information, bring the research. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I call the studio lines for the ESPN as far as the desk, and let them know, hey, your graphic is wrong. That stat is wrong. And it's because they've got rid of all the individuals who are working as far as interns, those entry-level positions, to pay those kind of salaries. And what happens, they neglect the facts. They get them wrong all of the time. And that drives me absolutely crazy.
William.
I agree with you, but I'm just, it's just like wrestling. It's sports entertainment now.
Yeah. William, to borrow the great line from a philosopher many years ago in Los Angeles, LA motorist Rodney King, Can't we all just get along? That's what cracks me up about game day. Here's Pat McAfee out there in a wife beater tee and a blazer. But 30 years ago, Johnny and Dudley and I remember a great entertainer from Seattle, Kurt Cobain. Here we are, entertain us. Now, William, you're when you go to a game, I know now they've got like a DJ down there in the end zone, don't they, playing music and stuff at Auburn?
Yeah, but that's mainly. I don't think that's really getting us into the game. We're not really paying attention to that.
There you go. There you go.
But to go off college game day, yes, Pat McAfee has brought a lot of attention to it, and I understand y'all's position on that. But at the end of the day, for me, that's not why I wake up to watch college game. I'm just saying that's an added bonus for it.
Yeah.
But other people, it is because they're tired. What I'm saying of Lee Corso, he's just not. For my opinion, is he's not on there as much for them to have to worry about it. So for me, and also the part about declining, yes, there are people not coming to the games as much, for students, it's declining in a way, but I feel like that's just part of just the team spirit of teams, I don't know, not doing as well, and the spirit of the team, or just not wanting to show up to the football games, or say oh, I could just watch it at home. And also there are those people that I don't know if, I've talked to some of my friends about this, that there's those college students that just want to get drunk right before the game, and then they don't have any alcohol at the game. So at Auburn, they don't sell alcohol. So
oh my gosh, he's got to learn. He's got to learn from the older guys. I went to Florida State when Florida State was the #1 party school in the country.
Yeah.
And did we go there and my student body, I was one of the first 50 people to do the tomahawk chop. And what did we do? There was things called baggies that did really a quite nice job of sneaking in alcohol to the stadiums.
Hey,
I had a pair of binoculars.
I'm going to defend him. I think he makes some good points. It's just you have to understand that I'm in the 60s, and we have a mentality somewhere along the way that say, "You kids get out of my yard," and that we need to get over it. But I do understand both sides here. I kind of keep my foot in there. I now look at Francis Cobain. Yeah, his daughter, Frances Bean Cobain.
Bean, that's right.
Yeah. Well, you know what? This is a cool discussion. That's why I like to bring William on with different people, because you're going to realize William's dad, I've known his dad since kindergarten. We're the same age. And he is a lifelong Vol fan. Not just a fanatic. And William, you think about what Johnny's saying. I want to throw this to you, Johnny. Your Heisman candidates right now. Here's the deal. Jaden Daniels on a 3-loss team. Tim Tebow did it in 2007 on a 3-loss team. Robert Griffin III did it in 2011. I don't know how stiff that field was in 2011. And there's one other guy that did it with 3 losses. So there is a precedent.
Oh, wait, let's go with the original. Let's go with Paul Hornung.
Yes,
2 wins, 8 losses. Let that sink in. 2 wins, 8 losses, and he wins the Heisman out of Notre Dame. I was asked this question yesterday from a station I was on in Orlando, and it comes down to this. Tua was the front runner for the Heisman Trophy until the SEC championship game, if you recall. Here we are, 2 regular, weeks left in the regular season. We got conference championship week. So the individual right now at the top of the list, Michael Penix from Washington. However, they're underdogs this week. Oregon State hosting Washington this week. Oregon State is the favorite. It started off as a 1-point favorite for Oregon State. It's now moved to 2.5-point favorites. And so whoever the favorite is today, here, hold my coffee, because that could change next week. We saw the running back from Oklahoma State trying to get into that conversation with all these quarterbacks. What happened? They got blasted by Gus Malzahn's Central Florida team this weekend. Bye-bye. There goes that story. Maybe you'll finish in the top 10. My guy, I still holding pat with Jordan Travis. And the reason I'm saying that is because I think Florida State wins this week. They win next week against Florida. They beat probably Louisville in the ACC championship game. They're taking care of business on the field. Washington, I think, does not do that. Take them out of the picture. So now who is your front runner? Will they give it to Daniels? I go back to, and this really irritates me too. I hear that conversation. If he had not got knocked out of the Alabama game, then he would have brought LSU back. They were down by 14 points. He had just thrown a pick six. They were down by 2 touchdowns with 11 minutes to go. I look at what Florida State did to Jaden Daniels and LSU in that second half, where they score a meaningless touchdown in the final 2 minutes of a game. And I'm not giving it to Daniels. Yeah, great stats, wonderful, but he's not my Heisman. Will he get invited to New York? Yes, but he's not my Heisman winner.
Yeah, Dudley and everybody in this panel, to me, I look at a Heisman Trophy guy, you've got to show up on the biggest stage.
Yeah, I very rarely make my decision before the final hours that you can. But then certainly I have Michael Penix, Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, and Jordan Travis are kind of the four I'm focusing on right now. I get to watch a lot of late night football, and it's interesting. I watch Washington, and I congratulate them on being able to win, but man, they just seem to ease by all the time. And you're right, Oregon State is a trap for them, and it's gonna
It's a trap for Oregon because they host Washington this week, Oregon next week. That would be like a team hosting Georgia this week and Alabama the next week, as far as in the SEC.
William, give us your top 3 Heisman candidates. I know you got to go to class here in a second. But I mean, you're this is good for you because we're throwing a lot of stuff out there, but you've got to have a top 3.
My top 3 are Michael Penix. I guess I'll put Bo Nix, and then I'm going to put Jaden Daniels. I mean, he's not going to be number 1 for me, but I think he's a top 3.
Yeah.
And that's fair. Totally fair there.
Yeah, that's a good one. And Johnny, the Heisman voting right now, there's if you don't show up in those big games, am I fair to say that you have to show up on the biggest stages?
First of all, you got to be on that stage, and then you have to perform. Yeah. Just like I said, Tua was on that stage. He was the front runner going into the SEC championship game, and Jalen Hurts ends up playing instead. Is one of these things where I go back 2 days ago, I had Johnny Musso, the original Italian stallion. Without Johnny Musso, Rocky Balboa would have been nicknamed something else because Carl Weathers was Johnny's teammate up in the CFL. And Carl Weathers decided, hey, acting's a lot easier, so I'm going to be Apollo Creed in the Rocky series. And hey, Sly, how about this nickname? How about being the Italian stallion? The Heisman Trophy in 1971, which was Auburn's very first Heisman winner, Pat Sullivan, was handed out on a Thursday night. It was announced during halftime of Georgia Tech, and the Iron Bowl was still to be played 2 days later. Johnny Musso finishes 4th. Because of what transpired earlier that day with Oklahoma's Greg Pruitt not really having a good performance, not showing up on that stage, Pat Sullivan not showing up on that stage against Alabama and Johnny Musso was there. Given the choice of an Alabama Johnny Musso and Alabama never having a Heisman winner at that point, or Ed Marinaro, they would have selected Johnny Musso, and there was a reason why he was the SEC Player of the Year in 1971, because they gave the award out after the season, after the regular season games were played.
Yeah, and you're right. And Dudley and William and Johnny, there used to be a lot of times you'll see All-America teams around the country when they're voted on, and those guys aren't even all conference in their own leagues because the local writers are like, hey, see what happens is the guys get that football magazine in July and they look at that and they go, okay, I'll just vote that guy. That guy may have been injured and not even played this year. William, when you start voting on these All-American teams, it is critically important that you make sure that those people are still living that you're voting for. Make sure they're still on the roster. Because with the
Well,
portal,
he could do what I did. You know, as sports information director, I felt like I was one of the best in the country at getting my guys awards. I wanted
Yeah.
every preseason award. I wanted every postseason award. And to get that, I sold my guys. I made my guys' stats stick out more so than the guy they were competing against for these awards, because I felt like that was my job and duty when I worked inside sports.
William, give me your SEC offensive and defensive players of the year. I think it's obvious on offense. I'm curious who your defensive guy is.
On offense, Jaden Daniels. On defense, I feel like it has to be someone on Georgia, but then at the same time, I'm not sure. Well, okay. For defense, why am I forgetting his name? He's on Tennessee, defensive lineman. He has like one of the top sacks in the country.
Omari Thomas?
Nope, not him. Nope. I'm sorry. It's a double name, but I'd have to look it up. But there's a guy on Tennessee that is like top leader in sacks in SEC. I can't remember his name. I really should, but that's who I put for my defensive player.
Johnny and Dudley, both of y'all know this. These All-America ballots come out. Y'all do a lot of research. You take that seriously, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I do, Dudley, don't you?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if you're going to give us a vote, you want to do the right thing. And I spend a lot of time watching a lot of games and then go and get a bunch of stats, just trying to figure out if what I'm seeing is reality, because their perception so many times. I can watch a guy, like Landon Jackson here at Arkansas. Alabama's people probably think he's great. I mean, that he had 3 sacks against them in 1.5, but he hadn't been as consistent throughout the year. So I think it's really you have to not only watch it with your eyes, but then go back and read and see if what you thought was real.
And, you know, one of the other things, too, I watch out for is those teams that are intentionally running up stats compared to those that back it off in the final 2 minutes of games. Nick Saban in Alabama, notorious for not running up scores. Mike Norvell at Florida State, they will kneel on the ball in the final couple of minutes. And so I don't necessarily look for just stats. I mean, now I will say stats will then bring my attention to somebody that I may have been overlooking. But then just like you, Dudley, I need more than just stats to, help me make those kind of decisions.
Well, and I sit there and you think about when people accuse you of running up the score. William, you didn't watch Steve Spurrier. He was accused of it all the time, but I like his answer.
Well, he admitted it.
Yeah. But to me, I think as a fan, William, I know my wife gets on me a lot. She goes, "You get mad when the other team gets the ball," and I'm like, "Yeah." I like what Weird Arnold said. William is a smart kid. Look, and Johnny. Hey, let me tell you something. These two guys here, Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, Johnny Ballpark Franks, you need to follow them. I'm just telling you, they help me more than you can imagine. We're all in the same age, but what they do, you hear what they've said. What's the takeaway from today? They do a ton of research. They are professional. And as a journalist, your job is not to be friends with the people that you cover. You be cordial, but when you agree with what they're saying is right, you've got a job to do. And that's more important than anything else, is doing the job and letting your readers know the truth versus the party line. Is that what you've learned today, William?
Yes, it is. I've definitely learned that. Also, just FYI, the guy I was talking about was James Pierce. He's the sophomore defensive lineman. I just wanted to get that out there. But yes, I agree with everything that's been said. Also, thank y'all for having me on. I got to go to class.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
You have a lot of class. Okay, William, we'll talk to you this week. Thank you.
One
Johnny,
of the things I was going to tell him, and you pass it along to him, is that very early on in my career, I wanted to be liked. I wanted everybody to read my stories and say, "Oh, what a great job you're doing. Arkansas's winning," and all this kind of stuff. Somewhere along the way, I don't know, maybe in the first 5 years, I decided I didn't care if anybody liked me or not, that I was going to go after respect, not likability. And I hope that I've been able to do that for the longest time. But I mean, it's just, you can't be liked and do the job. You can be respected and do the job. And if people, and it's always, I think I told you this, Bob, it's always been when Arkansas is losing, my son calls and says, or one of my sons calls and says, "Hey, are you okay?" Because he says, "I know from growing up that it was your fault that you're losing."
Of course.
Dudley brings up a great point, because I remember the very first year I made the transition working in sports, decided because of everything I'd always done, being a music DJ, radio DJ, weekend sports reporter back when I was a teenager, to my adult life. When I started doing sports talk radio in 2008, to Dudley's point, I played it safe, went down the middle, because people would repeat things to me 3 weeks after I said it, and that kind of freaked me out a little bit. About a year into it, year and a half into it, I realized I didn't really care. As long as I don't care if they agree with me or disagree with me. I remember I had a UT fan once was like blasting me, and I said, and he called me a buffoon. And I stopped him. I said, you can call me names like that. However, you have to know how to spell it. So I asked him how to spell it. By the second letter, he misspelled it. So I spelled it out for the 6 letters, and I said, "I will spot you the first 6 letters. Call me back tomorrow when you can spell the word," and hung up on him. But those were fun moments. I was having fun with those kind of things. Thick skin is just the key, whether you're writing, speaking, whatever it is. I think Derek Mason, the former Vanderbilt coach, who's now an analyst on the SEC network, he once said on the air, he says, I know you're tough on me at times. You're critical of me at times, when he was head coach at Vanderbilt, but you're fair. And that's the only thing I can ask. I remember when Howard Cosell in the 70s doing Monday Night Football, if you look at the poll, most popular announcers on TV, the most hated announcers on TV, he was number 1 on both of those lists.
Yeah, I didn't suddenly make a heel turn. I've used to catch wrestling things today. I have the bit. Yeah. I don't know how to get it across to people that I probably should just quit. I'll say I don't care whether they win or lose here at Arkansas. They say, "Oh, you went to school here. You're an alum. You were with the basketball program. You're fully, I said, "No, I really don't. I can't let that factor into how I go about my life. If it did, I'd be pissed off all this year, and I'm having a great year, in terms of personal stuff and all that. But I get that they don't understand it because they're passionate about it, and also I put all my love or whatever into pro teams, and when Dallas doesn't finish off to come back against Philadelphia, I get mad like they get mad at Arkansas. But they just don't understand that you can't worry about wins and losses, and sometimes the losses give you a break. You don't have to cover 20 extra practices.
I will say this to what he was bringing up, Rob, that, when we look at who we pull for, I do pull for individuals who are just wonderful off the field, away from their profession. I do pull for Sam Pittman. I pull for Hugh Freeze, because when you're around them in person, whether it's SEC media days or whenever your paths cross, those individuals are down to earth. And, so I do pull for individuals like that. Coach Stoops with the UK, so nice off the field, away from the, quote unquote, the professional arena. I want those kind of guys to succeed, because I think there's a place for those, because I still to this day miss my friend Bobby Bowden. And I think college football is missing individuals like, Coach Bowden.
Yeah. They would just come in and just take over the room, but they were real personalities. And y'all are both right. Look, I know y'all.
One of the best things that Chuck Barrett is the play-by-play
show.
He turned into Bobby Bowden's son-in-law. He married one of Bobby's daughters for a while, and we still married. But and he get a whole new respect for Bobby, obviously being his son-in-law. But I don't think a lot of people know that.
And look, Bobby Bowden was just, you think about stories that you've heard. Tony Barnhart told, and he tells some incredible stories about him, but he was a pretty cool guy. And Johnny, you knew him, but God, you could spend the shows about, but we do need that. We need people like that.
I introduced him once back in 2011 for a fundraiser in Athens, Alabama. And it was, interestingly enough, it was the day before all the tornadoes hit Alabama. But I introduced him by saying, if there was a Mount Rushmore for coaches, Bobby Bowden's name would be on that list as far as being under consideration. But I said, I don't know how many of you realize if there was a Mount Rushmore for individuals as far as faith is concerned,
Yeah.
Bobby Bowden would also be on that list for consideration as well.
Yeah, and I thought that was really cool, just the way he did. I mean, people that knew him, that I've talked to, they all say the same thing. They don't, and people that don't even know each other say he was the real deal.
He loved
You know?
Friday nights. Friday nights he had the team held hostage, basically. You know how coaches, take their teams away from all the fans and all of that. He loved Friday nights because that was his chance to get his messages across to his players and life lessons, faith lessons, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. Hey, we got to take a hard break up here against the top of the hour, and this has been a great panel discussion, really just about how it's supposed to be done. I like it. I like what you said about the Heisman Trophy.
I'm a nice guy, by the way. I'm not, fired. I'm just fired up on, maybe it's the coffee or whatever. I hope I hope he didn't think I was like, right now. I hope he didn't think I was mean to him or anything like that. I'm sorry. I just know I just bring it. It's just my personality now when I do these things.
I see some kids down here on my baseball field. I got to go run off.
Yeah. Yeah. No. What's funny is that this is what's so funny. Is William's texting right now, said, I love your style. Said, so do they. And he was like, cool, So anyway, it's a lot of fun. We're going to do this. Both of y'all, I know y'all, I didn't mean to keep y'all so long, but we got to do this again because William loved it. He's sitting there going, man, this is what it's all about. Okay. We got to take a break. Y'all let people know how they can follow you, keep up with all the great work you're doing. And man, I appreciate it because Johnny, no, he didn't take that way at all. I'm the same way about Pat McAfee. I don't really get it, but you know what? He's entertaining. He's probably a nice guy, but Roman Harper will be on here in just a second. I'm curious to see what, I love Roman's style because
I love Roman's style.
Yeah. So y'all, and we're going to be on with Roman, but we're going to take a quick commercial break. Y'all stay on if you can. If not, tag out, let people know how they can follow you. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a serious case of Hollywood Squares here when we come right back. But it is hour number 2 about to kick off. And William, the intern, he learned a valuable lesson today is, hey, man, not everybody's going to agree with you. But I love the fact that he said, hey, my generation, we want to be entertained. And you're going to be entertained in hour number 2 with Roman Harper, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, Mark Hamm, and all of us right after this.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
I'm back here with you here on this Wednesday morning. And I'm going to tell you one thing, man. Roman Harper on here with us, Rocky Top Tennessee Tailgate Report, and Mark Hamm as well. And Mark Hamm, Johnny Ballpark, Franks, and me. Roman, I got to ask you something, man. You got the best of both worlds. You're in Charlotte where you finished up your NFL career. You played 11 years. And my son Wilson lives in Charlotte, and he gets to go to this massive tailgate for the Panthers games. I got to ask you, what's more fun for you? Going back to Tuscaloosa, going to all these college campuses, or a pro game tailgate? I mean, I'm just curious because you are the truth broker is what I call you.
I hate to lie to you guys because I don't think I've really been to a lot of NFL tailgates. I usually go watch the games. I actually prefer to watch NFL games usually on TV, but if I do go and sit in the stands, it's really great because I just love watching the purity of and the excellence of execution that is the NFL. I watch so much college football now because of my job. It's just so much bad ball out there all the time. It's just the execution, the bad coaching, the things that they're teaching these kids. It's so It's just so terrible. It really bothers me. But when I get to go to the NFL, it's just so good. It's so clean. It's done at such a high level. It like makes me go back to like, this is my place of bliss. This is what it fills me back up. Just because I get to see some of the absolute best athletes playing one of the hardest sports ever at such a high rate of speed, and your execution, the ball placement, everything has to be so spot on, or it just doesn't work. So it's just really good when I get to go and observe that and take that all in. But there's nothing better than a college campus on a Saturday or Friday night. It just doesn't get better than that.
Now you're going to go to Knoxville this weekend. Mark Hamm's over here, and he's like, I've got 50 pounds of brisket, 20 pounds of it reserved for Roman and his friend. You got to go find him. Hey, tell him. I was trying to tell him how insane, and my background in doing ESPN or whatever, working for him through college and different times, you're working 18, 20 hours a day. You don't know where you are sometimes, but do know, and Mark is going to tell you exactly, come over there, but you're going to be in Knoxville. Tennessee fans are going to be looking for a win, but you got to go over there and eat at least 10 pounds of brisket with Mark. Mark, you going to be ready for him?
We are. Come on over, Roman. You've been there before, but I think the only thing that might win would be the brisket, because I don't think we're going to win against the Dogs this weekend.
Well, I love brisket. So as long as you got some good sauce to go with it, I'm all in. You just let me know wherever you guys are going to be at.
We got you. We got you covered.
Johnny, you talking about this college football season and what Roman gets to do. You from sports information and all, it's so different now. We got this SEC network. I love the fact we've got former players. And Roman, you said something the other day that I thought was pretty poignant when Mike DuBose was let go and you were being recruited. I wish you'd have gone to Auburn. Damn, I wish you had. But I think it's so neat you telling that story about how they stayed on top of you, in the transition. I mean, that was probably traumatic for a 17, 18-year-old kid.
It was because I didn't grow up an Alabama or Auburn fan. Both of my parents went to Alabama State, so I grew up an HBCU kid. And so Auburn was recruiting me heavily. Alabama was really recruiting me, but Alabama just went to the SEC championship the year before, and I kind of liked this kid, Freddie Millens. I became a fan.
Oh, yeah.
And, him and A.C. Carter, Andrew Zhao, like it was like a kind of a hip thing. I was like, I kind of like this team. And then when Coach DuBose got fired, the staff, like some of the coaches that were there, like still were calling me day after day, still recruiting me for the university, even though they were going to be going somewhere else. They were like, hey, just trust this university. And tell me those little stories and factors. So it kept me very much so engaged. And so I cared less about the coaching staff and more about the school. Like they were selling me on the things that the school were able to provide me and show me what Alabama meant to all these other people. So that's where they were continuing to sell me at, despite they're like, hey, whoever the coach is going to be, you have to worry less about that and understand like what Alabama entails and what it's going to be able to give to you. So that was a really cool thing. You're right. I didn't think anybody actually was listening to me, but yeah, that was a really thing that continued to keep me interested after the coaches were fired. And then when Franchione came, they continued to recruit me just even more. And the defensive back coach, Chris Thurman, who's at Oklahoma State now, we still are in very much contact all the time. And the DB coach at Auburn didn't like me as much. He didn't seem as interested in me. And so that really was one of the reasons why I chose Alabama over Auburn.
I had a quick question.
Find out who he is. May he have leprosy.
I had a quick question for Roman. I'm very fond of the Wishbone Boys, an Alabama stretch. We always talk about how Nick Saban, the greatest coach ever in college football. I will always, counter with some of the great achievements that Bear Bryant brought to the table. Like in the 11-year span from 71 to 81, 9 of those 11 years, Alabama would have been in the college football playoff if there was a 4-team playoff. We're talking about only 4 conference losses in that 11-year span. But I think it was the decade of the 70s. Although Alabama had already won national championships, I think because of that success in the 70s, I think the bar was raised where it was national championship or bust. And Roman, you were part of those years, the lean years per se, as far as with no national titles, only one from 1980 to 2009. Was the goal to win national titles when you were there, or was it more where it was brought down because of the lack of national titles?
I think it was national titles, like in mindset. But at the end of the day, I think we need to just win an SEC championship. I think when I was there, there's no thinking, I know. the lack of scholarships, us being put on probation, there was so many outside factors pulling on that university and team when I was there. I mean, I went through 3 head coaches in 5 years. So, and I went through 4 defensive back coaches. So I mean, the lack of consistency, I actually learned from it because I'm a rare bird. I'm one of those that I'm not a black and white guy. Like, I thrive in the gray. And so all those different moving pieces allowed me to continue to learn from so many other people and continue to, like, okay, well, I take a little bit from here, take a little bit. So, but not everybody else can do that. And I understand that. And so I don't think we were always national championship in mind. Is more like, all right, let's win the SEC championship. Let's be SEC West champions. Because at that point in time, the Pac-12 had USC. The Big Ten, still Ohio State, was still really, really good at that time. And so there was a lot of other factors and other teams who I guess were getting all the hype and the love. But we knew if we just handled our business, we still had a chance because we're still Alabama and we're still in the SEC.
Mark and Rob, he just brought up a very good point about the 4 defensive back coaches. Because I'm sure not, every year you were probably being taught something different or differently how to do the same thing. And that's what Bobby Bowden always told me. He says, everybody always assumes getting the best recruits is the key. He says one of the other parts that goes often overlooked is being able to keep the same coaches on the staff for consistency. And now with name, image, and likeness, the way the transfer portal works, I think that's why we see a lot of bad college football at times.
Mark, look at what he just said. I mean, you think about Tennessee. You went through last year for the first time, 15 straight losses. You beat Alabama last year. How many coaches did y'all go through?
About 15. At least 15. I think we were changing coaches every year, but it probably, 5 or 6 at least. I mean, we were changing coaches every 2 to 3 years. We had Kiffin for a year, then we had Dudley, then we had, I don't know, Pruitt, you name it. I mean, it's like, once we got through that 3-year contract, we were changing coaches. So it was awful. I mean, it was awful. But yeah, it's tough. But, people like Roman, though, to his point, he was able to take things from all those different coaches and, become an all-pro. So, I think if you got talent and you got guys that really want to do it, I think they're going to find a way to win.
So I think one of the guys, I got to be honest with you. One of the things that really helped me out was my upbringing. My dad, it was like, hard work's never a hard thing. You just grind. And so for me, like I said earlier, I'm one of those, I'm different than most. Most people like the black and white. I need either or. Me, I love the gray. I love options. I love, learning from this person and then being able to like, oh, okay, well, this coach is telling me to do it this way. I got it. But then what about what the last coach taught me too? If I can use some of that and implement a little bit more of that into my game, like I would continue to be more of a holistic player. And so I understood I was never the biggest guy. I wasn't the fastest guy. I couldn't jump the highest. I wasn't the strongest guy. So finding the little unique things that could kind of continue to help me separate myself. And I always had personal goals within the team goals. And so having all these things always rattling and going in my mind, I always want to try and be this. And I love the game of football, bottom line. And so it's just really fun, like looking back on it and like I don't know how, I know why we weren't good as a team. I mean, I don't know how I was good, but it just kind of works out that way. And sometimes you're the one that's under this bright star that God's put upon us. And, it's no longer just about being a football player. Now it's about going forward and shining that light on all these other athletes that maybe went through the same things that I'm going through, that let them know that they have a chance to do some other things. And it's really hard for you to imagine to do something that you don't see in front of you. And so sometimes you need that example to say, okay, it can be done this kind of way.
Yeah. Roman, I love the show, and I bet Johnny and Mark do too, read and react with you and Cole Kubelik. Cole busted his ass for years coming up to Memphis, speaking to Auburn clubs and going all over the place. I think he went to Homewood. But y'all two together are great. And I don't know,
thank you,
Johnny and Mark, did y'all see them on Halloween when they dressed as
I missed the Halloween.
I mean, that was, we need more of that on TV. There are too many guys, just too serious. But the other thing I love about you, here's another thing. You, Cole, Takeo Spikes, y'all are blue jeans and blazers. You're always dressed and nice, but no skinny jeans for you or no clam diggers. You got style but you're an alpha male. And by the way, guys, Johnny, you saw him up at Media Days. Roman, you're still working out like you're still playing in the NFL. You're taking care. You're, what are you, 40, 41?
I'll be 41. I'll be 41 next month. I'm actually outside the gym now because I'm getting active. But it's
hey, Rob, we used to have an expression when I was associate AD at Tennessee State University. That individual is styling, smiling, and profiling, and that kind of describes Romeo to a T right there. Roman is a cool guy.
Yeah, Mark, jump in here, man. I love that. I love Read and React. I mean, I learn a ton from it.
I was going to say, man, I appreciate that because the biggest thing with Read and React, man, is that, you know, we want to be able to educate and entertain these people. We want to be able to show you the why behind all these other things. We're not just sitting up here saying, okay, Tennessee won, Tennessee lost, but let's really talk about how they lost and why they lost. I thought last week, and I'll just say this on you guys' show, I won't say this on my Nation show, but Tennessee's defense was probably the worst game plan I'd probably seen in football in the last 20 years of watching it. So I don't know why all of a sudden they thought that they could do these things. And not only that, but they practiced it all week and they signed off on it. I thought it was just a terrible game plan versus Missouri. The fact that if you have one guy go in motion and you have 4 or 5 secondary players move off of one guy moving, that, like, how are we ever ready? And why are we all looking at this one guy? That means I'm not paying attention to the thing that's going on in front of me. And so you already behind the 8 ball. Like, and so when I see these things, I'm like, what are they teaching these kids? And I'm not blaming the players because they're 18, 19, 21-year-old kids. Like, they want to do what the coach is telling them. They want to execute it the correct way. Be different. I'm talking about a 9-year guy in the league where coach comes in telling him what to do. He's like, man, I ain't doing – I've been doing this for 8 years. You think I'm going to listen to you now? Like, this is how I do it. And so this is how I'm going to play it. And the coaches usually back down. Like, okay, we'll find a happy medium. It's not like that in college.
Do you ever get feedback? Do you get feedback from coaches or programs when you're critical? Like, for example, I watched the other night and you turned the coin over and started bragging about what Missouri did on offense. But if I'm on that coaching staff for Tennessee, I'm hearing those words and I'm probably a little bit uncomfortable hearing those words.
You know, I've never been questioned. I would love to. I mean, seriously, the what I saw versus Tennessee, I was like, I saw 6 or 7 plays where I was like, this is egregious. Like, there's no way anybody should sign off on a couple of these things. And Tennessee hadn't been that bad all year long, but they had this game plan in their mind, like this was going to work. And it was like, there's no way this is going to work. Like, there's no way possible that what you're doing right here is not sound. It doesn't work. It makes 0 sense. And I wish I could just come in sometimes as almost like an advisor and be like, hey guys, like, you should probably do this. Like, because a lot of times in the league, the players speak up. And so because it's all about how do you feel as a player? If the players don't see it the same, it doesn't matter how you draw it up on a whiteboard. The players got to go out there and play. And so if they're not feeling it, they're not able to understand it, digest it, and execute it, then it's not going to work. No matter how you think it works in a classroom, it's live bullets out there. I saw 2 or 3 plays where Tennessee's defense wasn't even ready. They were looking at the sideline trying to get a play. I'm like, we don't even have a ready play. Bonsai. Everybody at least lined up ready to play. Make them line up and beat you. I mean, you run tempo at Tennessee. How are you not ready? Like, these are like unexcusable things. And it drives me up a wall. Like, your D-line is looking at the sideline when they're snapping the ball, and you're not ready to play. Like, that is a cardinal sin on defensive football.
Roman Harper, defensive coordinator for Tennessee for 2024. I see it right now.
So that's not true. The defensive coordinator is actually up for the Browne Award for best coordinator of the year. I mean, I don't have a vote in that clearly, but and he would have lost me after last week. I thought before that they'd done much better, but it's still all the highlight plays come from the defensive line.
So, Roman, how do they contain Brock Bowers this week? I mean, what happens with that?
They don't. I'm not going to sit up here and lie. Like, I have 0 confidence that that's going to happen. Not only that, but Carson Beck's playing out of his mind right now. And so they're going to use Brock Bowers to get open in space and do some other things. But then it's going to allow other people to get open as well. And the way you guys are playing zone, you don't attach the guys late down the field. The lack of recognition of play types. I mean, they didn't cover the running back not one time out of the backfield all last week. It wasn't like Cody Schrader was just killing people with routes. No, he was just wide open because Tennessee chose not to cover him. And what they did in their zones, they didn't match not one guy between the tight end and the running back out of the backfield all day long. and it continued to be open all day long. There was not one adjustment. And so I'm not here to bang on Tennessee. I feel bad. But this was like, it really annoyed me with their game plan. And it made the defense and the players look bad, and it wasn't on them. And so I'm here to defend the players more than I am about attacking the coaches. I'm all about attacking problems, not people. And what I saw last week was a huge problem.
So I have a question based on what he's saying and the struggles with that side of the ball, and now the biggest game. Everybody had this game circled as far as one of the two key games for Tennessee this year. You've got the #1 team in Georgia coming to town. Great opportunities for your program if you can take them down. But Mark, just hearing your words too, not a lot of faith that Tennessee's going to be able to do it, especially the way they played last week. As players, Roman, can you get the team up ready to go after that performance last Saturday?
Yes, of course. It's a home game. It's the #1 team in the country. You'll be excited, and it's a rivalry game. It's in the East, so you'll be ready for that. And at the end of the day, the score starts off 0-0. So in your mind, you always got a chance. And so, but the biggest thing is all right. So let's talk about how Tennessee can keep this thing close. They can close the gap a little bit. I don't think they're going to win. I'm not going to use those words, but how they can keep it close. Number one, you have not been understanding who you are. You have not been explosive all year long in the pass game on offense.
That's right.
So I don't think all of a sudden this game you just turn it on versus Georgia. It doesn't happen that way. But what Georgia has been susceptible of is some more quarterback runs. So not just quarterback draw, but no, faking the running back the ball and you getting on the edge and doing some other things, allowing Joe Milton to be more of a threat with his legs and designed quarterback runs. Understanding that part of it. So you need to do that and not just line up and run the ball, because you ain't going to just run the ball on Georgia. It ain't happening. So more quarterback runs. They've been susceptible to that. Then defensively, you have to find a way to attach these guys more downfield and all this zone coverage that you like to do. I understand that you don't like to blitz a lot this year because your D-line's pretty good. Well, you just got bludgeoned last week, and so you need to throw out whatever you did last week, flush it, and move on, get back to some of the good things you were doing early in the year and hope for a chance. Pray for a turnover. But you got to create 2 or 3 turnovers on defense. Understanding like that's got to be our mindset, is that we got to force turnovers and we got to go get the ball. Now, we got to tackle as well, but the second, third person has to try and get the ball out, and we need a tip ball or two to try and go our way. And don't be afraid for an onside kick. Like, what are you holding it back for? Like, fake punt, whatever. Like, you got to steal possession. Like there's no reason. Like, if you lose 42-14, so what? You're just like everybody else, okay? They just did that to Ole Miss. Like, get over yourself. Check the ego at the door. Coaches, players involved. We either gonna keep this thing close and win it, or we're going to get our butts beat out. But we ain't going home with nothing that's not been called.
I mean, Roman just brought up a great point, because like Coach Bobby Bowden with, the Deion saying all the roster of all these future stars in the NFL. And guess what he loved to do each and every week? Have a special trick play ready. But to Roman's point, a lot of these coaches, from the pride standpoint, ego standpoint, they're saying if we run a trick play, that means we're sending the message to our players, we're just not good enough to beat that team. And that's why you don't see a lot of them. But with the lack of, you don't have the hours of practice time like you did 2 decades ago. I mean, things have changed in that landscape. That means you can't prepare for things like that. So why not? If you're a team trying to bring down the #1 team in the country, pull out all the tricks in the world, whatever you need to do.
Roman, along the line of what both of them are saying, I'm going to ask you now, Rodney Orr, Tyler Insider, and Gary Harris, Tuscaloosa Channel 23, WVUA, they're on every week with us. And I was trying to get Wesley Britt, one of your teammates, on, and I got to show you a picture, by the way, of him trout fishing with my friend Boyd Wade, who's about 5'6", and they're canoe racing partners. And Wesley's 6'8", 350. Boyd's about 162 pounds with a flak jacket on. It is classic. I think it could light up 1 million hits on TikTok. But
it was like man, they caught the whale, and the whale's name was Wes, right?
That's right. He's a hell of a fisherman. He caught 41 in the boat the next day. But let me ask you this. Nick Saban, I said this a while back. Rodney thought Jalen Milroe would be the quarterback. And I said a couple of weeks ago, I said, I think Nick Saban's having more fun as a coach than he's had in a long time. I know this sounds crazy, but coaches love to coach, and it re-energizes them. And I think he's going to look back fondly on this team as maybe his favorite team he's ever coached, Roman. Am I crazy? Too much coffee, or not enough liquor in my coffee?
Yeah, I'm not going to say best like most of all time, because I don't know all of his numbers, but I do know this. I will agree that he is having a good time, and it is something to be said about, so often when we do all these works or these other things, it's like, oh man, it's so draining, the hours and this, that, and other. But man, when you're pouring into kids that are excited about learning and excited about going about their business, like that actually fills you back up. Like you get more filled up with the spirit. And so I agree with that. I think it's been a very unique season. And the fact that they lost early, these kids, they didn't point fingers. They just huddled back up and said, man, all we want to do, we want to get coached harder. We want to play better. We want to continue to lean on each other. I think this team likes each other. And those are the little things that I'm hearing from within that locker room, from within the players. Like, they like each other. They hang out with each other. Like, they cook for each other. They do a lot of different things that other teams at Alabama have not done, even though they had first rounders and they were really, really good. And they had all these other things and accolades. But this team may not get all the accolades, but it's a damn good team that plays for each other. And they're probably the most improved team from week 2 to 3 that we've seen like all year long. Like this kid, Jalen Milroe, is just flat out balling. And it is scary to think like how much he has improved, and he's going to be back next year too. So where's his ceiling at?
And Mark, I think they take Georgia down. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I think they win it. I think they beat Georgia because Georgia's beatable. I think the way Alabama's playing, with Milroe playing the way they're playing right now, I'm just going to call it. I'm going to go with Bama.
And Mark, to his point, the fact that you're having these teaching moments, and then you look on the football field on Saturday and you're getting the W's, you're seeing that all pay off. That's why I look at this game for Tennessee on Saturday with Georgia, the opportunity for Josh Heupel and that staff to get the players back on board looking ahead to next year, but having these moments for all these guys that are coming back next year. Yeah. And that's why Saturday is really important to see which Tennessee team shows up. If we see another repeat performance from last weekend, all of a sudden now, if I'm a recruit, I'm thinking maybe I'm going to look elsewhere. If I'm a defensive player, especially look elsewhere for another opportunity.
No, I agree with you. But, if you look at Tennessee this year, we're a different team than we were from last year. I mean, we've been running the ball. If you look at most of the games we've won, we run for about 200 yards. We throw for 200 yards. I mean, it's very balanced. The problem is that it's going to be tough to get 200 yards against Georgia, and nothing against Joe. I like Joe, but Joe hasn't really thrown a lot for a lot of yards this year, and it's difficult. So, not trying to take anything away from us not winning this weekend or saying that we can't, but we got a tough road ahead, and I think I'm looking to the future where maybe Nico can come in and start throwing for 500 yards a game. So.
Well, Roman, listen, I know you got to get in there and work out, but I got to ask you this: I loved Marcus Spears. I loved Booger McFarland. His real name is Anthony. I loved it, but they went off to the NFL. You're not going to leave and go to the end. I mean, seriously. I mean, you and Cole and Takeo are my favorites. And maybe you're Auburn and Alabama guys. I'll admit that, but y'all are just y'all are alpha males. We don't need to lose you. No offense, but I mean, I hope the SEC network is taking care of you. But we appreciate. Even my wife goes, I love Roman because he just tells it like it is, and that's important. There's too many too many soft people out there. Okay, we need you to be doing what you're doing, college football, because kids are watching this stuff too. All I'm saying is thanks for doing what you do, and I know we went a little bit long. We really appreciate you taking time to join on here with us, like I do having Johnny on and Mark and everybody, but it means a hell of a lot. And my phone's blowing up and they're going, why can't you get him on more often? Because you just tell it like it is, and you've got a real story. And I keep talking to you about going into coaching, and you're not going to do that, but we appreciate what you do. And SEC Network needs to keep you and Cole. Read and React should win an Oscar.
And man, I appreciate that, man. That's the ultimate compliment. Mark, first and foremost, I'm gonna come find you this weekend, bro.
Yes, sir. Come on.
All right. Have Rob text me and tell me where you guys' location at. I'll come find you Friday. Even when I get out, I'll come see you Friday, and then definitely Saturday.
Sounds great.
But Rob, man, number one, man, I don't plan on leaving college right now. I'm still enjoying the space I'm in.
Yeah.
And I like talking about teams and the young players and all these other things. And I take that as the ultimate compliment. Yesterday I got a clip sent to me from Paul Feinbaum's show. Terrion Arnold was on there. And, the fact that he actually said that he, appreciates the way I carry myself. and that but he also used other names like Denzel Washington, Chris Tucker, Deion Sanders, and then to be able, and Paul Feinbaum as well, and then for me to actually be mentioned in that group of men, it was a great compliment. It's the ultimate compliment for me. Like, this is what I do it for, and I appreciate people that are watching and listening. And I do just try and be honest and tell the truth. I only know my story, and but I share it from that way, and so I will continue to do what I do, man. I appreciate it, bro, and like always, you guys keep allowing me to have this platform to talk. So thanks.
The next opening on College Game Day, we're looking at the guy right there. You don't even have to look anywhere else.
That's right.
He's in the vicinity.
Serious. The who dat? You still love New Orleans, don't you?
Come on, man. I'll be down there in December. So yes.
There we go.
All right. Take care, Roman. Appreciate. Have a great day.
Y'all be good, man. I'm about to go get swole. Thanks, guys.
Okay. Take care. You know, and that's the thing. And Johnny, I'll tell you something I love about Johnny and Mark. You know, Johnny does this every day on shows. Johnny's so good about incorporating a question, say, from Mark into a question for Roman. And that's a skill. And Mark, you do the same thing. But that's what I love about Roman. I mean, you watch him on TV, you watch Cole Kubelik, you watch Takeo. I mean, Takeo he's so fired up. He looks like he's going to jump out of the screen into your living room. But that's what we love about college football. And I was going to tell you the story that Tony Barnhart told about Bobby Bowden was Bobby Bowden, I believe, had lost a grandson, died in, I believe, a car wreck. And there were a group of reporters in the locker room after the game. And Mark, I don't know if you've heard this, but Bobby Bowden was talking to those reporters, and one of them down in Tampa maybe had a new grandson, maybe a few weeks or months old. And Bobby Bowden, after what he'd been through that week, losing a grandson, took a hat and autographed it and put something on there and threw it to that guy. And Tony Barnhart telling that story, he just gives you chills. But look, I'm not saying nobody's perfect. There's all these cynics out there, but you know what? You knew him, and I got a lot of respect for you, Johnny Ballpark Franks. That means a lot, and people don't know the personal behind-the-scenes stories. And Mark, we've got that group thing with Roman on there. Get him to come up. Just remember, I'm ADD and OCD. Those guys have got 25 million people pulling at him and everything like that. But get him over there. And one of these days, you're going to get your brisket on the set. And Johnny, if you're in Knoxville, you've got to go over there. It's right by the Torch guy. But
I'm a big brisket fan. So thumbs up to
Come on
that.
up anytime, man. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. But that was a great discussion, both of y'all. Great questions. And what I love about SEC football and college
I like
football.
what Roman does. I mean, Roman is such a good dude, right? I mean, he came over to our tailgate last year and didn't have to be there. And came over there because Rob was there. But I mean, he's so analytical, but he's smart. But he tells it the way it is without offending people. I mean, he's just very direct with it, which is what you want to hear. And he was exactly right. I mean, the game plan for Tennessee on Saturday was terrible. And when you have a guy that can really say it without offending people, that's what you want to hear, right? You want to talk analytics, and you want to talk, the truth without emotion. But I mean, the thing about it is he's so smart. He's telling us exactly what happened because of the schemes, not because our players are terrible. So, it's just an analytical base, and it's from a knowledge base that you want to hear. So hopefully you improve, right? I mean, so those are the kind of discussions you want to hear. You want to hear what you did wrong so you can get better.
He's presenting problems, but he's also in his next breath presenting solutions to those problems. And that's what I love. I cannot stand individuals who, I don't care if it's about football or life, who constantly want to complain about problems, but offering no solutions whatsoever.
You're exactly
Roman doesn't do that. I mean, that's what I love watching him and Cole together.
You're exactly right.
The best advice I've ever been given by my dad probably was, when you're going to a meeting and you want to accomplish something, don't go in there complaining. As an architect, he's like, go in there with a written plan on how you're going to solve that problem. Let them know what's wrong. Say, and we would do that. We would take a civil engineer like Joel Johnson. We wanted to use this field for training our dogs at Shelby Farms in Memphis. Joel, being a civil engineer, road mole, got a topographical map and looked at where we could go and do the least amount of damage to the land and we offered to pay $25 a vehicle for a permit. What's not to like about that versus just complaining? And I think both of y'all know this in this college football season. Look at the crowds that are out there. I mean, the passion. Tennessee, 6 or 7 straight sellouts, 105,000. I mean, this is what college football is all about. And the stories about these behind the scenes, like Roman talking about that locker room at Alabama. You know what this Alabama team reminds me of? In a way, the 92 Alabama team. When Dabo Swinney, his mother was divorced, and she moved in with him at Alabama, and all the players would come over there, and she would cook dinner for everybody. He mentioned those players are cooking together after the criticism of the loss to Texas. And then what I found out Saturday about Jalen Milroe, both parents, United States Marines. Think he isn't a tough kid? You think he hadn't had his rear end chewed before? Look, didn't start off well, but he's getting better, guys. I mean, and he's coming back next year.
Well, the thing about that
scary.
is, if you look back to all the national champions since 1969, for example, there's only one team that never got challenged, and that was the Nebraska team in the mid-'90s. Auburn, when they won the national championship in 2010, 9 times games could have gone the other way.
Oh, yeah.
At the end, people don't remember that. The only thing they remember is the fact that was the national championship team of 2010, or whatever year you want to throw out, like the Alabama team you threw out in 92. A lot of close games there. Could have gone either way. Instead, Alabama found ways to win games, and that's why we can call them champions at the end of a season.
Yeah, and listen, I know Mark, you got to drop off. You got to go to a meeting, and so Mark, I will send you the stuff right here after the show. Thanks so much for being on here with us. Okay.
Nice to meet you, Mark.
Oh, sorry. That's Audrey's cousin, Mark. Mark Hamm,
cool.
like her brother. She has. She grew up with 6 brothers, all within 2 blocks of her. Her 3, and then Mark and his 2 brothers. And they are lifelong Tennessee fans. I mean, this picture in the background over my shoulder, that's from the old Neyland Stadium that was signed by Johnny Majors to Audrey's father, and Billy Hamm from Johnny Majors. And they are Tennessee. His tailgate has about 300 people there. You got to go to it. Right by the Torch guy up in Knoxville. But Johnny, I love what you said about the Heisman, because you bring it every game. You can't just sometimes want to block if you're an offensive lineman. It becomes a state of mind. What you said about the Heisman Trophy, and I met Paul Hornung, came into the bond division at the bank when I first started that summer when we were in training. He always said, before you leave, make those extra 5 or 10 calls. That guy you want to get hold of, he's either going to be there late or he's going to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning. You probably passed him on your way to work. Get to him before the gatekeepers get in your way. You like my SEC map in the background, Johnny?
I do like that.
Put one of those. Yeah, that was hand carved.
Well, wait,
by my good friend Barnwood Brenda in Batesville, Mississippi.
Honestly, I can say I like the artwork. I don't like the fact that we have Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri. I mean, no offense, even Texas A&M, for example. I miss the old days of these conferences. I miss the old Southwest Conference. I miss what the Pac 8, 10, 12 used to be as we move forward. At times I even have to double check which conference is this team in now. You have to, I forgot that BYU or Central Florida playing in the Big 12. But thank you for that. I love you're bringing up Tennessee's history, and that's one of the things for me personally. I'm a huge fan of SEC history. So not only growing up in the state of Alabama, I know Auburn, but I also know Tennessee. And, I still go back to, a great successful coach in Bill Battle for Tennessee in the 70s. He won a lot of games. Unfortunately, he could not beat Bear Bryant in Alabama, and that was one of the reasons why he had to say goodbye. But Bear Bryant used to pay the ultimate compliment to Tennessee. He always used the Tennessee game as the measuring stick of just how good his team was going to be, and that was a compliment to the program for Tennessee, because he knew he was always going to get a really solid Tennessee team facing him on any Saturday, whatever year you're talking about.
Yeah, and Tennessee's still the 9th winningest team in the history of college football. Georgia, number 10. LSU number 11, and Auburn number 12. In Alabama, 4th or 5th, because they took away those ridiculous forfeit games. You know, that's really Notre Dame's the biggest national brand, but Alabama is the most tradition-rich program in the history of college football.
It's not Michigan. It's not Michigan.
No.
I mean, Coach Harbaugh says it's Michigan, America's team. I have to laugh at that. By the way, of course, this is coming out of the same conference with leaders and legends. So how did that go over? So
well, yeah, just like what you said, Michigan is the winningest team in the history of college football. Okay, and you think about that. They are, and but from 1948 to 1997, almost 50 years, 49 to be exact, one national championship. In 97, they split it with Nebraska, who won it in 94, 95, and 97. And then Tom Osborne rode off in the sunset and became a congressman from the state of Nebraska. But you're talking about this history. I love to look at 35, 40 years ago. Look at the polls. Most of the teams in the top 10, top 20 are still in the top 10, top 20. All right, real quick, Johnny, I got to throw these names at you because, dang, we got a ton of stuff, and I just couldn't get to all of them. But top candidates for the Mississippi State job. Look at it. Jamie Chadwell, Liberty, who's been there 1 year after leaving Coastal Carolina. Look at those names. Willie Fritz, Tulane. John Summerall, Troy. Rhett Lashley, SMU, who's got a long history, 8 or 10 years coaching at Auburn. He played at Arkansas. Jeff Lebby at Oklahoma, offensive coordinator. Cliff Kingsbury, Southern Cal. Tom Herman at FAU, former Texas coach, and Dan Mullen. What do you think about those names?
Willie Fritz, I mean, think about Tulane. The only loss for Tulane this year was to Ole Miss. That's it. And then you back it up with what they did last year and bringing down Southern Cal in the bowl game. I would have a conversation first and foremost with a Willie Fritz. If you're Mississippi State, you don't want somebody from the West Coast. It'd be like Auburn bringing in Brian Harsin. You want somebody who understands what it's going to take to win at Mississippi State. How can you become one of those top 2 or 3 teams in the Old West? Of course, next year, all that's going to change with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma, the way the standings work. But you have to understand, what I don't want, if you're a fan of Mississippi State, is somebody that's just thinking national as far as players. I want to start and draw a fence around the state line and get the best players out of the state of Mississippi first. I'm going to visit and talk to every high school coach, football coach in the state of Mississippi, and build from the inside the state of Mississippi and moving my way out.
So you're saying Willie Fritz would be a good hire?
I like what he's. I mean, it's Tulane, and look at the success that they've had at Tulane. I love the way they played like last year in the bowl game, where easily they could have just packed it in, realized they were going to lose. Instead, they kept fighting in the final moments, and they created those opportunities and took advantage of those opportunities. And for me, that's the key. What I look for in a coach.
All right. One more group from Jerry Kirby in Clarksville, Tennessee. And Texas
Urban Meyer. Let's just throw that name out. Urban Meyer has
everybody's top candidate.
Urban Meyer has no business ever being a college football coach again. Period. End of story. He is bad news for college football. But other than that, go ahead.
Well, yeah, and look at Jeff Traylor, UT San Antonio, the Roadrunners. What do you think about him?
On this list, who I do not see is Dabo Swinney. And, I go back to the history of college football. And Brent Venables, a nice turnaround with Oklahoma. Why not have the conversation with Dabo Swinney? Because here's a guy not fully in love with Clemson right now as some of the boosters and vice versa.
Yeah.
Sometimes you wear out your welcome. And that's historically the case for most coaches. After 8 to 10 years, they get tired of you. You get tired of them. And so, everybody keeps talking about the fact that maybe he's waiting until Nick Saban hangs up the whistle and maybe he'll come to Alabama. Who would want to do that? I mean, who would want, even though you played there and you can brag about your roots with Alabama, who wants to follow somebody like a Nick Saban or Bobby Bowden? So I go back to at least have the conversation with Dabo Swinney.
Well, who's his mentor? Gene Stallings. Lives in Paris, Texas. Has a lot of influence. I think he was on the board of regents at Texas A&M. that might make sense. And it does make sense if it were to happen, because you're right. You can just get tired of the school and they get tired of you. And if you don't do something about it, it'll never end well. And so that's interesting, those names. And Johnny, look,
What about
man,
Arkansas, by the way? I know it's not open yet, but if it becomes open, to me, that is a one-name person. One name. Do you know who it's going to be?
Bobby Petrino?
Gus Malzahn.
Well,
Gus, I would go after Gus. If I'm Arkansas, if they do decide to part ways with Coach Pittman, and like I said, one of the nicest guys you'll ever want to be around. If that happens, for me, Gus Malzahn never should have been fired at Auburn. But, with that opportunity, no offense to Central Florida. Now, he may not even want to leave Central Florida. Why would you, in the sense that you can compete at Central Florida in the Big 12, especially with Texas and Oklahoma moving on? But I would at least have that conversation if that job opens up.
Yeah, and that was another one we talked with Dudley about in the first segment. And I think that when you look at coaching, we don't know if Arkansas is going to come open, but Arkansas still has to play Missouri. That's going to be a grinder. And we really didn't talk much about Missouri. I know they're not part of the original. And you notice on the map here, the contiguous geographical footprint. And you see where I am up here at Kentucky right here. I feel like the weatherman, huge cold.
We got the low pressure coming through.
Low pressure one, as you and the number one term you want to avoid on the news set is as you can see. So looking behind me at Kentucky, what is that connected to? Indiana. So if the SEC ever expands, I guess the stovepipe would be Notre Dame. That would be crazy. But either way, crazier things have happened. Johnny, look, this has been awesome today. And we've been talking a lot, and I don't know if the Arkansas job is going to come open, but I'm with you on Willie Fritz at Mississippi State. This guy has done it in a lot of different levels. Lance Leipold has done it on the smaller levels. He's winning at Kansas. Could he be their Bill Snyder?
He could be.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hey, it's tough to win, in football at Kansas, even at Kansas State. Even it's tough to win football games at Mississippi State, unless you have cheated in the past. No offense, but let's just call it what it is. I like what Mississippi State can be, and as long as you understand what it is, that you're not going to be playing for national championships each and every year, but you can still put out a product that will every once in a while flirt with that kind of success. That's what you're looking for. You want somebody who will do it the right way and not bend rules. If you can win at Tulane, you certainly can win at Mississippi State.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Willie Fritz he's got a lot of mileage left. He's a really I agree with. I think Willie Fritz would fit Mississippi State. I'd jump all over him because he's already had to deal with the academics that you have at Tulane. And he knows the recruiting footprint.
I just hope he does if it is Willie Fritz or whoever it is, especially if they come from a group of 5 program, don't make the mistakes of Brian Harsin or Butch Jones. Make sure you understand the culture of your particular school. Butch Jones, to me, like when he was hired at Tennessee, had no idea what Tennessee was and what Tennessee was all about. The fact that it's a blue blood. To me, I always joked about this, that he wanted trophies built because he was beating the by the victory teams with all the wins he was racking up. He almost like he wanted to have like a trophy like Nick Saban has outside the stadium for those kind of W's without winning championships.
Yeah, what Jimmy Ott calls the rental wins. I mean, that's the thing about it. But yeah. I mean, Johnny, look, there's so much happening in college football, but the one thing that I do see, now when we were up in Clarksville last week at the mother-in-law's for about 6 days doing some work, they kept wanting us to stay, so I'm working from wherever I am with a phone and a laptop. But listening to the sports talk in Nashville during the day, it's just all pro sports.
And that is sad too, because, I was talking to one of the local reporters this week. That was not the case when I worked in college, in the college environment back in the 90s and the 80s. But then you add the Predators, the hockey team. Then you add the
Yeah.
Tennessee Titans. I feel bad for college football programs in this area, the college basketball teams in this area. Vanderbilt, to me, will never become anything more than what it is right now. And it's like a Swanee, especially in football. And the reason why Vanderbilt had the opportunity, I remember on a Thursday night game, they were hosting Notre Dame in the late 90s at Vanderbilt Stadium. They had an opportunity then. Everybody had that opportunity before the Titans came to town. You know, the Oilers, Tennessee Oilers played in Memphis first in 97.
Oh, yeah.
And then made the transition to Nashville in 98. But people were still not backing them because they hated the name the Oilers in 98. They struggled to sell out Vanderbilt Stadium, which seats at the time less than 40,000 fans. But the problem is these schools, when they had the opportunity before this area and this city became all about the Titans, they didn't do enough from a marketing standpoint. They didn't do enough to get their foothold and build that foundation. And it's something that they'll never be able to recapture ever again.
Yeah, and it was just like my wife and I were listening. How many times could they say Will Levis will be the starting quarterback over and over and over? It's like the Camp Lejeune water commercials. I mean, we know about it, okay?
Well, there was a station. There was a station broadcasting during SEC Media Days from Radio Row, and the whole time that one show was talking about the Titans. Wasn't even having guests on, none of the players, nobody associated with college football.
Yeah.
It was all NFL discussions while they were on Radio Row at the SEC Media Days.
And I heard 102.5 and 104.5. It was just nonstop pro. And I mean, if I'm Vanderbilt, I mean, they need
at least 104, at least 104, which is also the home of the Tennessee Vols here locally. At least 104 was having the college football guest on. And they have somebody in the afternoon, Dawn Davenport, who also is a sideline reporter as well.
Yeah.
So they were bringing some college football discussions to the table. But to me, it's a sad thing, and I'm sure that if you're in the city of Pittsburgh, these cities that have they're NFL cities that also share. I remember back when I first went to the SEC championship games when I was in sports talk radio in 2008, 2009, 2010. Even then, there was more discussions about the Falcons than the fact that they were so used to big events that the SEC media days or the SEC championship game, it was like an afterthought in the city of Atlanta.
Yeah, it really, you're right. And we love college and love the pros too, but you got to have balance. And I mean, if I'm Vanderbilt, we got to get a college. In Tennessee, good grief. And in Memphis, you listen to sports radio in Memphis during the day, it's Grizzlies and Tigers. In the SEC, I mean, most of these guys, they're either butthurt, jealous that they're not in the SEC, or they hate the SEC. But if you're a Tennessee fan or Ole Miss fan, you'll get some talk, but not nearly what you think you were. That's why you need to be listening to Sidelines and your show on the ump in Huntsville, the smartest city in the state of Alabama. Huntsville, Madison County. Johnny, let people know how they can follow you, keep up with all the great work you're doing, because we need it. Journalism now has transferred from paper writing, on paper and all, to laptops, computers, websites, to podcasts, to radio, to TV and everything. You've got to be a Swiss Army knife to survive in today's world, and you are as sharp as it gets. And let me say, most often we see the face of Christ and the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Freedom of speech, the First Amendment, allows us to say what we're saying. And down here in the South, we don't have to worry about the minders from Ohio State and Michigan trying to tell us that the Big Ten is the greatest conference in the world. We're going to tell you they're not. They're good, but it's the SEC. Johnny, tag out.
What you can do is you can follow me on Twitter at BP Franks Show. And in addition, on Facebook, you can find me at Johnny Ballpark Franks.
All right, man. Great stuff as always. We'll be back tomorrow morning. We've got a great show in store for you. Houston Nutt's going to be on with us Friday. Tony Barnhart in the morning. Appreciate you listening. We're out of here. Have a great day.